My name's Dan McGinnis, Director of Public Safety for the Benton Harbor Department of Public Safety. First name, common spelling, last name is MC, capital G-I-N-N-I-S. So we have for us an incident, and I will give you some of the preliminary facts of that incident. The incident is currently still being, it's under investigation. We want to at least get information out to the public. We want some of the general facts moving forward. We believe in full disclosure, and at some point, once we've gotten with the family and taken care of the investigation, we will be releasing videos and the audio from the county. So there's already been a question as far as a FOIA. You can submit them to us, but we will be releasing at the time that the prosecutor of Benton County, Mike Sepik, deems it appropriate to release that information. Okay? So on October 18th, approximately 2:12 a.m., Benton County Dispatch received a call from a third-party caller indicating that there was a subject that was being held at gunpoint at a house on Pavone Street in the city of Benton Harbor, the 900 block of Pavone. The caller was not sure what the address was, but was able to give a description of a particular vehicle that was in the driveway at this location. Officers got together for a response plan. When we have calls such as a barricaded gunman or a person being held at gunpoint, we treat those very seriously. Officers got together, got a plan to approach the house. Officers got to the area, found the residence that had the vehicle as described by the caller. Officers then approached the house, made contact with the residents of the home, investigating whether there had been any trouble afoot. The occupants of the residence had not called the police, were unaware of any incident that happened. They were fully cooperative, invited us into the house to search the house to see if there had been anybody that might have been there injured, under duress, or any type of suspicious situation. Upon determining that there was nothing of trouble in the house, the officers with the homeowner go back outside on the front porch, ultimately the front steps. As one of our officers is getting her name and information, shots ring out from the south on Pavone Street coming from the area of Broadway Park. There are an area of 4 to 5 shots that were originally shot at towards the residence. Officers felt as if they were being shot at. One officer describes it having a bullet whiz by his head. The officers immediately run for cover, backside of the house, ultimately to the alley. Shots continue to ring out. One of the officers that was on the location that was having cover for the officers for the original call was standing by a tree with a police issue high power rifle. He sees the muzzle flash, the shots ring out. Officer then engages the subject as he's shooting at the house on Pavone Street. More shots ring out, a couple more shots. We also shoot, hitting the subject, and subsequently he died from his injuries. At this point, I think the body is at the autopsy right now as we speak. We are unaware of the nature of the injuries of the subject that was shot. That information will be released in the future. Fortunately, no officers were hurt. It should be noted that not only on the front steps of the residence where the officers were talking to the resident, she was outside. Could be heard on video, her running for cover also. There also was another female who happened to be crossing the street. She could be seen on video running as the shots ring out. Again, it ended up being shots going both ways, and subsequently with the subject being shot and killed. We immediately contacted Michigan State Police to come in as a nonpartisan agency to do the investigation. That is pending. Any investigatory questions could be asked of Lieutenant Christensen. The officer who was involved in the shooting, according to our policy, procedure, and CBA, has been placed on paid administrative leave. At this point, we are not releasing the name of the officer. We're not releasing the name of the subject who was shot, for respect to the family. For the respect of the family, for both families. There are other things that we're investigating. Again, any investigative questions can be directed to the state police. And that is the situation that we have. Once the subject was down, we do know that the gun that he was shooting was totally expelled of all rounds. In addition, there was a second firearm in a pocket in his left leg. Those were confiscated and kept as evidence. And there is ultimately a bigger investigation that we're putting together.
When will you be releasing anything?
Soon.
Today?
Depends on the course of the investigation.
Very likely today, later on today.
Where'd you say the second firearm was found?
On the pant leg, left pant leg of the person who shot.
Is there any doubt that the officers were the intended target of the gunfire?
At this point, we can't say that.
It's possible they could have been shooting at the homeowner or the resident?
That is possible, sir. Yes, sir.
Was it the rifle that shot the man with the rifle?
Yes.
No other gunshots
No.
to him?
The other officers did not return fire as they were scurrying to get cover, and he was shot with the police issue.
Shot once, or do you know how many times?
At this point, we don't know the number of times he was shot.
Do you know where the 911 call came from?
Yes.
Where?
Can you say?
At this point, we can't release that information.
Can you say if it was a landline or a cell phone?
That I cannot say.
Obviously, the community should be concerned that this was some kind of ambush. Can you say either way, was it or wasn't it? Do you change your policies in responding to such calls?
Yeah. At this point, I don't know if we're ready to say it was. I think preliminarily, we don't think that it was an ambush. There's other things, facts that will be released later on that will help understand kind of the whole situation. But it's clear that there was an intention to harm somebody at that residence. Pavone is very dark, especially at night, very, very dark. So it's quite possible that it was shooting at movement. We can't not say for sure that he was shooting at officers purposely, specifically to shoot at officers.
At this point, you don't think that your officers were intentionally shot at or targeted?
We can't say that. We can say that right now. That makes these things.
Have you changed it?
Is there any reason to believe that? Is there any reason to believe that the person who called was working at all with the people, I guess, firing gunshots?
The caller was not working with the shooter.
Did officers indicate whether they saw the subject approaching and then the shots rang out, or the shots happened and then they found that subject?
The shots just happened. In one of the cameras that will be again released later on, you can see a muzzle flash in the distance from a shot coming towards the officers. Benton Harbor Department of Public Safety has body cams. We've had them for a couple years now. We're very grateful because there's a lot of information we've been able to glean from those, and putting the various officers' body cams together, you can see the whole picture.
You're talking about a lot of different shots being fired on both ends. Any idea of how many came from that subject, or is that part still under investigation?
I think I probably let Lieutenant speak to that. At this point, I'm not sure if we know exactly for sure if we're releasing that information. One thing I will also know that during the course of the shots being fired, the woman who was in the street when the shots rang out, and you can see on video her running. One of the officers grabbed her, pulled her to cover, ultimately stuffed her in the car and got her to safety. So even though this was a situation that was pretty harrowing, officers were able to act and save a life. I'm not sure what happened on the front porch, but the woman who you'll see ultimately running away. We ended up getting her to cover. So
And she was on Pearl Street?
yes, yeah, I think she was crossing the street.
How many officers total were on the scene?
4.
Is that from the start, or did others join in the middle of
Is it normal for a phone call of someone being held at gunpoint, for only 4 officers to respond to that?
Well, you have to realize, that doesn't happen often. We have policies and procedures to address that. Now, if you look at the railing wisdom or logic in police officers, it'd be really kind of no different than school shootings. Years ago, when Columbine first happened, we would wait till a team to assemble, then we go in. Now, we're saying, let's go and immediately neutralize this threat, make sure that we save any possible victims. With 4 officers, that's a darn good response, because you got your approaching officers, you got a perimeter set up, as well as a cover officer that covers the officers as they make contact with the residents. So we're pleased with the response that we have.
Neighbors in that area said there was someone else there that was taken away by police. Can you speak to that at all?
I'm not aware of that.
Neighbors also said a car was towed from the scene. Is that true, and if so, why?
Yes.
Yes. Part of the investigation was why.
We
Is
also
it believed to be the suspect's car? Was it hit by gunfire? Or?
It had been hit by gunfire, yes.
What about a stop sign being taken down? People were telling us the stop sign was taken down as a result of investigation too.
Really, again, that would be
No.
a question for the state police. As far
Okay.
as they handle the scene.
Okay, so just to clarify, 4 officers responded to the initial call
Yes.
of a man being held at gunpoint.
Yes, ma'am.
So you said the female officer sought cover and a gentleman officer fired back. Where were the other 2 officers?
No, there wasn't a female officer. There was the home occupant, the homeowner
Oh, okay.
was talking to the officers, and the
Okay.
shots rang out.
Okay.
So you have that woman
Mhm.
with the officers, and there was a woman in the streets,
Okay.
all right?
Can you emphasize once again, why is there a need to bring in, outside, Michigan State Police to help out with this
Okay,
investigation?
that's a good question. One of the things which wouldn't look very transparent if we were to investigate ourselves, okay? For the purpose of transparency and for public trust, we feel it's best to either have situations like this, either the Berry County Sheriff Department or the Michigan State Police come in and handle those investigations. It's totally, at this point, taken out of our hands. The only part that we have is the internal administrative investigation, which would indicate if there were any policy procedures that have been broken departmentally. So we think it's best served for our community, for our department,